first, I want to say thank you for all those present here. I know, again, this is a Saturday. You should be just enjoying it with your family, and you're here, you know, being part of this training initiatives for Care Indeed. So thank you. This training, this 1 hour training, is my hope is for you to leave this training feeling empowered, feeling that you're able to find more meaning in providing care for your clients. For some of you, I have spoken with you several times, you know, some of you saying it's really hard to be a caregiver. I'm tired of this. I wanna quit because it's just way too much, right? And I feel you because I've been a caregiver myself for many years. So for today, why this title? I chose this title because the first part of our training is really about understanding what's our participation. How can we make our work more enjoyable, more purposeful? And one thing that I learned with Care Indeed is, as a leader, is before I look for others to blame about my current situation, is to find out what I'm doing currently that might be in the way of me creating that possibility with another person or with the company, right? And this is something that I wish for us to really try to focus in this training, is to really, for me to encourage you to look at ourselves first, to see what are some of the old beliefs, some of our current beliefs that might be in the way of us not feeling fulfilled when we're taking care of client with dementia, especially with client with dementia. So first and foremost, I want to know when you're given a case in a dementia client, what's your automatic thought process when Care Indeed calls you? We have a client with dementia needing home care service. What's your automatic reaction? Patience. Anyone?
Well, when I used to work at the VA, at the VE of Palo Alto, that was always coming to my mind, okay, that the client needed somebody who could understand the client,
Got it.
Because not everybody does.
So patience and more understanding about the client, right? Yeah. Okay, and we'll go deeper about, what's really the right mindset when you're working for a client with dementia, okay? So this is me, and the reason why I hate public speaking, just FYI, this is something that I'm not really comfortable with. I want to be honest with you. It's making me really uncomfortable being in the front of this one where all your eyes are looking at me, right? But I feel really compelled. I have moral obligation to all of you as the CEO of the organization to share what I'm learning. Last year, I attended Atipa Snow. She's a well-known mentor in how to take care of dementia clients. And I feel I learned so much during that 3-day training period, and I really want to share it with you. And the only way I can share it with you is to really face my fear of public speaking. But here I am, okay? So bear with me when my voice is trembling a little bit. For today's agenda, I'd like this meeting to be a very interactive meeting. I don't want to be the only one talking because I feel that we're all going to learn from each other. There's no right and there's a lot of right answer and there's really no wrong answer. Because the wrong answer will be when you do it with your client, you will know it's a wrong move, right? So you just have to kind of maneuver and navigate it the way you could when you're in that particular situation. So there will be, at the end of this presentation, there will also be a raffle draw. So just wait before you leave. So Ate Rossi will be handling those. And Danielle? And there's goodie bags too, okay, if you have to leave earlier than the training finishes. So agenda for today's training will be, number one, just talk about the basic dementia. What is dementia, right? Number two is our biases. What's our judgment? When we're talking about dementia, how do we call clients with dementia? Do we still call them demented? Do you still hear people say we're taking care of demented clients? Have you heard of that word though?
Yeah.
Right? Those are words that we should never utter anymore. Right? We call them people living with dementia. They're more humane, respectful, instead of calling them demented clients, right? Number 3, strategies. We're gonna work together on finding better strategies in handling client with dementia. And number 4, we'll have scenario. This is the more interactive ways that, I need to hear how you're going to handle certain situations, and maybe another coworker or another team members here can say a much better way on how to handle those situations. As we all know, with clients with dementia, you need to be resilient. You cannot, when you are a caregiver, you cannot be set on your ways. If you think that, I took care of this client A and I did this with him, I will do the same thing with this client B. Especially with client with dementia, that is a no-no. Because you're always trying to figure out, because every day is a new day, right? So next is, before we do, what is dementia? Can someone tell me what's your definition of dementia when you say dementia?
It's when the brain cells begin to die, damaged, and so it affects the memory, it affects their like real life experiences of today. And so for every person, it can be completely different, and the process and the declining can be completely different, faster or slower. So, when I go to a new client for the first time and they have that, I realize that for me the first thing is that I'm going to come in and I'm going to have to assess on, where they're at.
Wow.
So that I can better handle and relate to them and make them feel calm and
wow.
so on and so forth.
Gloria, you said a very powerful word there. You go to a client's home and understand where they're at that particular moment. That is truly the core of dementia care. Finding where they're at. It's not, oftentimes as a caregiver, we have agenda, right? Our agenda is to provide personal care, light housekeeping, companionship, all those things. But when you're working with a client who's living with dementia, it's really knowing where they're at that moment. And we don't know. It's always like a guessing game, right? So that's why it's so challenging when you're working with client with dementia, because you're constantly thinking. You're constantly thinking, and that's the reason why as a home care agency, or any home care agency for that matter, we need to provide you the support. Our obligation is to support you, to be there for you when you need us, right? And this is because this is not a one-woman show or a man show. This is a collaboration of everyone to make sure that this is a successful care provision, and at the same time, you're not exhausted and you're not dying because you feel alone, right? So thank you for that. Thank you. So, but before we even talk to the more specific definition of dementia, we need to understand the anatomy of the brain, right? It's very important so we can connect. We can connect that what they're doing, people living with dementia, it's not when they're saying bad things that might be offensive to us. It's not personal. It's not because they want to hurt you or be mean to you, right? There's part of their brain that's no longer functioning. And I think this is really the basic thing that we all need to know. Because when we're in that situation, as a human being, where our automatic response is to feel it's hurtful, and they're intentionally wanting to hurt me or making my life harder, right? But there's science behind it. There's the anatomy, right? So first, let's look at this. I want you guys to hold this, right? This is the frontal lobe, right? For frontal lobe, Alex, do you mind reading what's the function of frontal lobe? This one.
Yeah, judgment, planning, problem solving, movement, emotion, behavior, and personality.
So this one, right? So meaning if this part of your brain is not functioning, most likely your judgment is impaired, planning is impaired, you're unable to problem solve. Those people who used to be the CEO no longer able to problem solve, right? Your emotions, you're unable to control your emotions. Behavior, personality change from a person who is really like pleasant, social, now it's more so, introvert or wants to just be by herself or by himself. Those are some of the changes, right? Now let's go to the parietal lobe. Gloria, do you mind reading this for me, please? The parietal lobe.
Spatial awareness, sense of touch, pain, temperature, body, and positioning.
Correct. And now when there's dysfunction here in the parietal lobe, what happens is you see clients with, this is a cup of glass, right? And they're trying to pour the water, but they're not able to know the spaces, right? They pour it somewhere else. So, and unable to, you're so cold and yet they're so hot, they're so warm. So those are some of the, when there's dysfunction in the parietal lobe. Now let's do the Jan, J-A-N, amygdala.
You want to do it? Emotions.
Emotions. We all, have you heard of amygdala hijack? Anyone? What's amygdala hijack? Anyone?
The emotions are taking over.
Emotions taking over, and we've all experienced that, right? Amygdala is the part of our brain when there's stressor and when we perceive a threat, whether it's real or not, our amygdala kicks in. So with a client with dementia, whether there's no threat, that's why when you approach them, some of the clients will just be automatic, like try to punch you or scream. It's most likely amygdala is dysfunctional, right? And this is something in our personal life, you hear it like you're on amygdala hijack. Those people who got scammed, our seniors who got scammed mostly, is because their amygdala was hijacked, unable to think clearly. They gave all their personal information. There you go. Gone. $100,000, all those things gone. Because you're unable to think. When your amygdala is hijacked, all you need in a normal situation, we need to pause. Never ever make any decision or say anything when you know that your emotions are super heightened, because most likely you will make bad decisions. With normal people like us, we're able to control that. We're able to know that we need to pause. With client with dementia, they're unable to hold it or control it, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is really like understand that there's physiology behind this. There's science behind this, and they're not trying to make our lives harder, right? Hippocampus. Anyone? Kim, can you read what's hippocampus?
Memory.
Memory.
Yes.
Very, very critical, right? Memory, hippocampus. It's a very almond-shaped type of, in the brain. This is something that I want you guys to remember. Hippocampus is memory. Temporal lobe. Mary?
Memory, hearing, language, and understanding.
So with temporal lobe, always remember there's a right and the left. Okay? Where's the right? Where's the right? Okay, let's do the left. The left, when it's dysfunctional, left is about language, and comprehension of language. So when you see clients unable to speak clearly, word salad, right? They're rumbling words. They're unable to understand. You're saying like, I want you to get up, unable to understand that simple words, right? Most likely their left temporal lobe is damaged. Now on the right, you hold this one, right? This is very important. The right. This is when you hear, because these are impulses. These are people that you see in like social setting, unable to be socially apt, and when they racial slurs, right? You hear those people like calling you out, like you're brown, you're black, you're yellow, something like that. Those,
you mean the Karens of the world?
yeah, something like that. But these are people with dementia, right? On the right. People who will say really like nasty things from a perspective of normal, people like us. These are people who don't have impulse control anymore. And that's the right lobe. So now again, understanding that it's not because they intentionally want to demean you or make you small or minimize you. The part of the brain is unable to function, right? And then occipital and cerebellum, Ate Mariam?
Occipital lobe is vision.
Vision.
And cerebellum is balance, coordination, fine muscle control.
Correct. And these are some of the symptoms I know that some of you have seen with your clients with dementia, right? And we'll go deeper onto this. Dementia is a broad term to describe a decline in cognitive function. You both said it. It's memory loss, intellectual dysfunction, right? Severe enough to interfere with daily life. Severe enough. So it's a combination of intellectual dysfunction plus severe enough to impair your ability to perform activities of daily living. That's dementia, okay? Now, so how many dementia types do you think there is at the moment?
But sometimes the term dementia, they call it now mental health.
Probably.
You go to the mental health ward where they have all the...
And they're actually under the mental health clinical, syndromes, actually, dementia. So, but it's also connected, like mental health, right? Just FYI, there's 100 types of dementia cases. 100 types. These are the 4 or 5. There's 5 very popular types of dementia, right? One is Alzheimer's. So there's a broad term. The general term is dementia. And under the dementia, we have these 4 very popular kinds of dementia. Number 1 is Alzheimer's. Number 2 is frontotemporal dementia. Number 3, vascular dementia. And number 4, Lewy body. Okay? Let's start with Alzheimer's dementia. So Alzheimer's dementia, what happens with the brain is there's this unwanted protein. Protein is good, but these are bad proteins that's accumulating in your brain. And typically, this bad protein's first attack is hippocampus. So who can remember what's the function of hippocampus?
Memory?
Memory, right? So with Alzheimer's dementia, memory is the first thing that they attack, these bad proteins. The tau tangles and amyloid, those 2 things. You don't have to remember it, but I'm just saying. So they start with the memory. And they call this insidious onset. When you say insidious onset, it's a slow onset. It maybe takes years or even a decade for symptoms to show up, right? So sometimes what I heard from the studies, sometimes when like maybe this person in his 70s starts showing, or even 60, starts showing signs of depression. And the unfortunate side is you can only find the real thing that's what's happening in your brain once you're dead. Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately. And that's something, that's the sad part of this, but there's so much research and studies focusing on this one. So it slowly destroys memory. So again, hippocampus is the first target. So you see with Alzheimer's, memory is impaired, right? They don't know where they place this. They don't know where they left their keys or something like that. Basic tasks that we typically can remember. Next is frontotemporal dementia, or FTD. Do you know who's the popular actor who was diagnosed with FTD?
The guy from Die Hard.
Who?
What's his name?
Bruce Willis.
And then another one,
Bruce Willis.
the one who killed himself. Robin Williams. Robin Williams. The unfortunate side was that the wife thought that it was just, depression and, something like, maybe Alzheimer's. But after he passed away, the wife actually gave his, thing to be studied, and there's FTD. He was there's FTD, right, very clearly. And that's the unfortunate side, right? The unfortunate side. And FTD is typically the dementia that younger people gets. And this onset is typically like 70s or 80s. This one is below 60. FTD. FTD. So I'm not here to scare you guys, okay? But FTD, this is the younger onset, okay? And again, unlike Alzheimer's is more some memory. This one is, you see, personality changes. Changes of personality, that someone used to be so social, so nice, and abruptly just being so mean, from our definition, the way, to describe it. And sometimes, this is where I ask you guys to really be an advocate for yourself or for family members. There's all these tests also available. MRI, PET scans, all those things. Go to your neurologist, have those referrals. Be an advocate for your family member and have those tests. I know those are expensive tests, but if, hopefully you have insurance, these are tests that maybe can help, right? Because early prevention is the best as always. Vascular dementia. This is triggered when someone had a stroke. Some strokes are major strokes, some are TIA, or the minor stroke that sometimes we don't even know. And this is where the blockage, there's blockage in the arteries, and the blood flow which carries the oxygen to the brain is missing. So typically, this happens, vascular dementia, right? And then Lewy body dementia. Lewy body is also a protein, bad protein. This one, the bad protein, is tau tangles and what's that? Tau tangle starts with A. Amyloid. This one is the name itself, Lewy body. The bad protein here is Lewy body accumulating, right? And typically, these are the main signs here are like, visual hallucinations. You see clients seeing things that you cannot see. Like someone's trying to kill me or something like that. Oh, I see a dog passing by or something, but there's no dog, right? Visual hallucination, and sometimes Parkinsonian symptoms, like the movement, They're trying to move, there's tremors, everything like that. That's Lewy body. And the fifth one, the most popular, is the mixed dementia. So they can mix. They can FTD and vascular, or vascular and Alzheimer's. And the unfortunate side here is the mortality even is, goes up, right? They die faster, unfortunately. At the end result here is death. As always. We're all gonna die, but they're gonna die faster, unfortunately, when there's especially with mixed dementia.
Is there a medication for any one of those?
There's medication to slow down the symptoms, but still no medication to prevent it there's no medication to cure it yet. We're working on it. There's multi-million dollars, invested, people, paying for research for this. But up to this point, there's none. But there's a lot of really new medication to slow down the symptoms of dementia, right? And really right now, the only thing we can do is like healthy living. Stress is one of the contributors, risk factors of dementia. So any sustained stress or allostatic stress, those are really bad for us. So as much as possible, we need to find ways to be able to kind of step back when there's heightened stress consistently and do something for self-love.
Education. education right now is the the solution, because most of the problems that people have with memory health are caused by ourselves, our diets. Like if we eat like too much cheese or something that create fungus, and you are not active, you don't have enough blood circulation,
Correct.
then it start accumulating in the part of your body, and it's not flushing. All the
toxin.
Yeah. And you have a lot of connecting veins in the brain. If one gets clogged,
Correct.
that's it.
Stroke,
Yeah, stroke.
aneurysm, Alzheimer's in the long run, right?
Yeah.
And-
Like I remember about 3 years ago, I had my half of my face was paralyzed.
Oh,
I had
Bell's
the-
palsy?
Yeah, Bell's palsy. And that was because I was under a lot of
Stress.
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 Okay, and I just needed to take some time off, and it cured itself. But
Correct.
some people,
It's long term.
yeah, no, and you can see that they had it in their past. But if you start exercising and just get out of the couch.
Correct. And Alex, to be honest with you, team, Alex said this because I'm back to school, and one thing that I'm learning so much is the value of exercise. I hate exercise. I don't like it. I'm not excited to run or do Peloton or anything like that. But it's a must. It's really a must for all of us. It is, it's an initiative that there's really no bad side effects. That's the only thing there's no bad side effect is exercise.
Exercise.
It
and
takes a
drinking
lot of
water.
mental strength to do exercise, especially for people like me who don't like to do exercise, but we have to. Really, we have to.
Even just the good vigorous walking is great for vascular and our
yeah.
heart.
Correct.
Really a bonus, yeah.
20 minutes a day, small steps. Yeah. So I really hope, that after this training, you really make time for you to do exercise. Find time. You have to find time.
Even working on our shifts, I find that's great exercise. You're just going from here to
Correct.
there, all that, walking and to and fro and.
Keeping everything clean,
Yeah, it's.
But you're not doing housekeeping, team.
No, but
Keep-
it looks good on you. You feel
Correct.
good. You're not doing housekeeping. You're just keeping everything tight.
Correct.
You know?
Yes. Exercise. Anything that keeps your, physical, health active. Perfect. Now, these are, again, some of the struggles that our clients face, right? Or family members, for that matter. Memory loss, aggression, wandering, delusions. And what I'm hoping that this training will not just you learning knowledge, but more so instilling some empathy, right? In all of us, to put ourselves in the shoes of those people who are unfortunately have dementia. That these are people who used to be so accomplished in life, used to be so independent, used to do a lot of things, supported their family, sacrificed so much for the family, and they're in this state, and it's a joy, and it's such a privilege for us to be giving back to this person. Because I always believe in karma. I always believe when you do good, even when nobody's watching, good things happen. Good things happen all the time. Maybe not right now, but it will happen. So here's our biases, right? I shared with you that one thing that I've learned as a leader of this organization is I've made a lot of mistakes, most especially during the first few years of Care Indeed. I was a caregiver, became a nurse, and all of a sudden owning a home care agency. So you see the shift. I was not trained to lead. I was not trained to manage people. I was not trained. I was natural at giving care. I'm good at that. That's something that's given in my nature. But managing people was not something that I'm really used to and accustomed to, right? So the first few years of the company, I have old beliefs of who I am, people, the world, And I brought it to my leadership, and what I realized was those are some of the things, that's why I have failed relationship and failed management, most especially during the first years of the company. And what I want to share with you is sometimes we all have those old beliefs from our culture, from our family, people we grew up with. And those beliefs are no longer working right now. Beliefs that we need to be able to reevaluate and see if it might be the roadblock in order for us to provide the best care for our clients and provide the best life for us, right? So this is some of the things that I want us to talk about openly, and I'm really hoping that this is a safe environment where you can openly share. No judgment, but all us learning and discovering what we can do to make our lives better and, and find joy while caring for our clients. Yes, that's me. So, who amongst you, like when you hear the word dementia, you think that this person is incapable. He cannot do anything anymore. She cannot do anything anymore. Who's the brave person? Oh, Ate Rosie. Ate Rosie? Just kidding.
Well, at first, when I was a caregiver, there are cases, before they will not tell you, you're going to attend to a client that has dementia. During those times, dementia is not really very popular because a lot of people are, I don't know if it is fear, shame, or whatsoever, but they will not discuss with you. And then you go to your client house, and then you notice something up. Oh, the client is forgetful or whatsoever. And since you don't know that they are living with dementia, whatever you do, okay, you do you help them with their daily activities. And then there is one client who is just like off the chart, cursing you, telling you, get out of my face. So you as a caregiver without any knowledge with dementia, how will you react? Because my first reaction is, shoot, I don't want to go back to this client.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I hear it from some of you, like, I don't want to go back to this client, right?
And then learning about dementia, because I have a lot of certificate with dementia. Although the learning is different from each other, the only thing I learned is when you are taking care with client living with dementia, the understanding, the patient should be as big as the Pacific Ocean. Because I have a client with severe dementia, the only thing that client remembers is my touch and my voice.
Nice.
So when you deal with them and your voice is high pitched, they develop fear. So there is a resistance.
Got it.
And my only advice for you people who's taking care of people living with dementia is just try to listen. Don't argue.
Don't argue. Never.
Because the moment they hear no, there is already a resistance. The
Correct.
wall is so thick, you cannot penetrate.
Correct.
So just be quiet, step back, and then come back. In 5 minutes, everything is different again.
Yeah.
So for you to really take care of people living with dementia, you should know who you are.
Wonderful.
You should know how to hold your emotion. Especially with a lot of our caregivers, they are burned out because they're working 16 hours. So when they go back to the client, so the client is, you as a caregiver, is already burned out, your patience runs dry. So what's gonna happen with the client and you? It's
Correct.
not a good thing.
Correct.
So always remember who you are, what's your capabilities, and if you feel like you're tired, you are
Patience.
so sleepy, just go home. Don't do the shift, call your office and says, I cannot work.
Ate, let's talk about that. Don't call your shifts. Let's talk about this part.
It's just like,
Don't call. I'm just kidding. But yes, Gloria.
what she was referring to, what Rosie was saying, I had a client who had severe dementia. He would be outburst hysterically. So what I found was just what she said is at that point is I would just step back and disengage. And then once I did that, then the next minute he had totally forgotten and was happy and on to something else.
Clear. Correct.
And
Correct.
that worked great.
Correct. And it takes resilience for you to develop what Gloria just said, right? Because we take things personally, most of us, right? And when, because we take pride that we're great caregivers. When someone tells us like, get out of here, I don't like you, I don't need you, it hurts. Automatic reaction, it hurts. It takes a lot of resilience for you to know that this is as a client with cognitive problem, I need to step back and disengage. 5 minutes, you show again with your calm demeanor, and it's almost like a fresh new start again. Hey, let's go out. Let's do something.
Yeah, focus
right?
on distracting at that point. Like, let's go look at the garden or
Correct.
get something to eat.
Correct. A lot of redirection and a lot of resilience from our end as caregivers. And going back to this underestimating abilities, when you have clients with dementia, it doesn't mean that they do not have any abilities or skills at all. It's our responsibility to understand what skills still left in them, right? If they're still able to walk, or if they're still able to enjoy the park, if they're still able to do crossword puzzles, you're like a drug to them to slow down the process and the progression of dementia. By those social interaction and being so curious to know what's still left in them, and then don't just do everything for them. If they're still capable of doing small tasks, I know it takes time, just try to do it, right? Try to do it with them, Know if they they love to cook or something like that, cook with them. Because I know sometimes we have the tendency to do things so it's faster, right? Our agenda is to finish our task. But there's certain things that we need to be able to do together to kind of slow down the progression of those diseases, right? He's intentionally making it difficult. Again, this is about us taking things personally, right? So we don't want to go back. He's making it so difficult for me. All I'm trying to do my best, but he's making it difficult. And the situation here is, what if this person is also not diagnosed with any kind of dementia yet? But he has dementia, and that's really the tricky part. Even with advancing medical research and studies, some people are not diagnosed with dementia, but they do have dementia. So how do we, instill that empathy in us to understand that, again, they're not trying to make things difficult for us. They may be scared, to lose that control, that capacity to be, when they used to really run the show, run their household, and now they might be needing help to the basic driving or cleaning, their bathroom or something like that. That's scary, right? And sometimes we have to have that pause to understand that, what if it's me? What if it happens to me where I'm able to control my urine and I'm just soaking wet all night? What if it's me? And I think about that I still have control over my urine, and what if? And there's no one. I'm trying to ask for help. No one's helping me. I'm soaking wet, right? Those are some of the things that I think it's very important for us to remember. We are so privileged to really be doing a profession that's humanistic, something that's really valuable for our community.
Making a difference.
What does a caregiver do when you are faced with a dementia client who starts pushing and hitting?
Before I answer that, anyone who can respond. When you have a client who start pushing and what, pushing and doing that.
Yeah.
Anyone? Space. They don't, back to the anatomy, right? The spatial awareness, impulse control. They're unable to control their impulses, and most likely they're scared. Most likely they're communicating something that unable to get out from their mouth. They're trying to communicate.
They're not able to express what they want. So basically, you give them the time. And for us as a caregiver, it's important to get that type of training. Okay, today's my day off, but anything that has to do with learning, I want to be there. But that's a need that every caregiver needs to have, because you need to prepare. There is no special training. I used to work for a company that we have in-service, and I was paid to be in that in-service because of my profession, and I was very lucky to get all this training. But Care Indeed cannot train everybody, so everybody have to
help
get
each
that
other.
information. And there is a lot of information in YouTube. Okay, you can go to YouTube and you can get how to deal with a client that is always a stress.
Correct.
Can I share my
And you will find-
experience?
Yes.
So people are like that. We call it normally combative, right? So people that has dementia, according to my, based on my experience, they don't like sharp movement, especially when you're approaching to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sharp
Abrupt.
movement, like, oh, the pen fall. Oh, they hate that. Boom, they thought that they're gonna hurt. Gonna hurt them. So you're gonna be really soft. And I would do, like, when I communicate with them, eye-to-eye contact with a soft
Love
voice.
it.
And then feel first if they're gonna be action, and then don't touch them.
Never.
So just
No
go
abrupt
slow,
touches.
Abrupt, and then sharp movement, they don't like it. So that's all I can say.
That's one of the things that I've learned in that Tipas No. Abrupt movements. Never when a client is sitting down and you're like this, you're over empowering them, right? Always try to be on the eye-to-eye level. Eye to eye, because now you're trying to create that safe space for them, right? And no abrupt movements. Thank you for that, Ate Mariam. Yes, V.
Yes, I have experienced before at 2 a.m. Suddenly she really get mad at me. She said I took her property and then I will call the police. But I sure this is not right. So I just step back because she just want to hit me with the walker. And then I step back, I keep watching, I just keep praying because it's only my strong when I pray, and then he's still getting mad at me, but I don't
Correct.
personal. But yeah, I called 24-hour care Indeed. I need
Help.
support.
Correct. Correct. And now this is a good way for us to mentally prepare that those things happen, right? This is in a way finding tools from all of us to find ways. There's no one right answer. It's really about us navigating and being creative on how we're gonna do this, right? So they're not trying to make it, difficult for us, for family members, or our clients. They're not trying to make it's hard on them, right? They won't not notice, right? Sometimes as a caregiver, our job specification is provide personal care, do this, light housekeeping, everything, and we're just there for 4 hours, or we're just there for 8 hours. So our thinking is like, let's get this done, right? And sometimes to the point of rushing people. So it's very important that we need to be aligned with the agenda of the client too. If the client really wants to take her time and sweet time on all those things, we need to be in that phase, especially with client with dementia. Next is, again, recognizing our biases. Is my hope is after this training is you have some time to think about what's my biases, what are my judgments about dementia, what have I learned right now that maybe I can restructure and shift my mindset so I can be more fulfilled in caring with clients with dementia, right? And it takes a special person to care for a client with dementia and find true meaning in that. And I'm really hoping that through this training, that we'll be able to instill that in us, right? To take pride that you're those special people. They're rude and mean. You know, I hear this all the time that, you know, they're rude, they're mean. But what if describing them not as a person, but the behavior? The behavior is challenging. His behavior seems to be, you know, abrupt and somewhat aggressive, right? Not describing the person as rude or mean. In a way, it's instilling in us a sense of empathy towards people who's living in this really bad disease, right? They're fearful. You know, they used to be so accomplished. We're taking care of a very accomplished, very successful man right now. And he has dementia, and imagine, right? The shift. He used to be, you know, people go to him, ask for his advice, consultancy, everything like that, and he just lost it. Imagine that, right? And what if there's still a part of you that still recognize that you're losing it? Even harder. So I think really knowing that this is happening is for me to, hopefully, you guys will show empathy towards your clients, towards people who might be having some changes that might be not diagnosed yet, right? They're intentionally uncooperative, again, taking things personal. They're inappropriate, right? You know, some people, I've had a client when I was a caregiver, I was giving him a shower, and he will be like, go to the shower with me, right? And I was a very young caregiver then. I felt, oh my God, he wanted to rape me, you know, so I called the home care agency. Oh my God, he wanted to rape me. He want me to go to his, he want me to put the shower thing on his thingy. Oh, you know, I don't know what to do, right? This happened to me.
I used to have a client like
This happened to me, and you can imagine my naiveness, right? I'm just all about caring. I did not know about dementia. I want this, I want this. This happened. But again, let's go back to the anatomy, the physiology, right? Impulse, inappropriateness. What lobe? What lobe? Right or left? Right. The right lobe, inappropriateness, social inappropriateness, racial slur, you know, those sexual comments, right lobe. It's not because they want to rape you, right? Or, yeah, but be careful also, maybe, I don't know, but I hope they're dementia. I know. And in those moments, if you're uncomfortable, step back, right? Step back. Set boundaries respectfully, right? Engel, you want to say something?
Yeah, that kind of inappropriate confusion with them. If you know, so I work as a CNA, as I told you, and the facility you see a different kind of diseases and different kind of dementia stage. So, and about that, when I worked with a woman clients, or I went to help her, sometimes they just hit me my booty, like, oh, you're fine, and oh, come on here, baby, you know. Mm-hmm. So, but I know, as a man, I know, or as a CNA, I learn about a little bit about dementia, correct, about the Alzheimer, correct, about the Parkinson, you know, and I know that kind of function of their brain is not working properly. Correct. So you never can take it like a personal. Everything they're doing. Takes a lot of really understanding. Exactly. Understanding. Exactly. Besides that, you need to know about they are there for any reason. Some facilities for recovery, some for the mental care, and you know. But the point, as a caregiver, when you go in face to the clients in a house, probably you are a new caregiver, or you are start to be doing this in this field. You need to, first rule by myself is treat other people as well you like the people treated. Mm-hmm. The first rule for me, personal to me. The other thing is like, if the agency told you there's a dementia disease, if you don't know anything about that, as he said, go
Alex.
looking for information and anywhere. Now we got information
Anywhere, everywhere. Yes,
Yeah,
YouTube, Alzheimer's Association.
Exactly. And when you feel like you feel that the client is attentive to you, first of all, give it their space. As you said, give her their space. Go all the time. Try to keep the eyes on him or her. Like if she's or her is in the living room, probably you go to the next room, but try to keep close to the gate and see if
Correct.
he's doing fine. Because 5 minutes later, everything is gonna be a new challenge.
Correct. A different one.
Yeah, a
Resilience,
different-
new things. True.
Exactly. And take your time. Even you need to finish some tasks as a caregiver, but your priority is your client. If you have to do housekeeping because the agency told you have to, but if your first task is your client, keep safe and he's clean and he's in good mood, everything's good. If you can do it, that's gonna be perfect.
Correct.
But first of all, never forget about your priority, about
Client,
your
your client. And thank you for that, because I think it's really valuable. Know that if you're really uncomfortable, we cannot force you to be on those shifts, right? This is really about knowledge for you to really make those informed decisions, whether this is really the type of clients that you wish to take, right? Because there's one thing, excuse me for this example, but I want to let you know what's out there. I used to take care of, when I was practicing my clinicals, there's this man who used to masturbate, okay? He has dementia. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is he doing, right? One thing I learned from the nurses there in San Francisco was their right to do those things as a client, as a person. So what the nurses did was just, close the door, the thing, what do you call it? The drape, and just let him do it, right? Those are their rights. And sometimes it's uncomfortable for a lot of people. And if you are uncomfortable, just give us a call, because we don't want to place you in those uncomfortable positions. But know that, again, there's physiology backing it up. They don't have those control anymore. What time is it? Just to make sure that we are respectful. So 15 minutes, almost 15 minutes. So empathy over judgment. Again, over and over again. Dee asked me on our way here, he's like, can you really teach empathy? Is it teachable? Can you really teach someone to understand another person's perspective? For me, I believe we can, for as long as someone's open to knowing that there's something in them that still needs some kind of improvements, right? If a person is closed down, nothing, I don't think anything can be penetrated there, right? People need to be open to understanding there's still a gap in what I know at the moment in understanding people. So I do believe that empathy can be taught for those people who's open to learning empathy. Yes,
Okay,
Alex.
there is no subject in the university about empathy.
Empathy, none.
But keeping in mind that we are the professionals and we are not a babysitter, okay? Because some people misunderstand that or compare babysitting to caregiving,
Correct.
okay? And it's a big difference because you are dealing with different people with different needs.
Needs every time. Every time.
Everything is so different. So you have to treat yourself as the professional and do the right thing. And doing the right thing is understanding the client and
Where they're at
where
that
they're
moment.
at, and then feeling for them, understanding, and then you're going to be doing a better job.
Correct. And sometimes it's easier said than done. I can tell you all these really nice things, but I'm not living in your world. I don't know what goes on with your personal life. Those are factors that comes into play when we're providing care, right? No matter sometimes how much we try to separate personal and professional, it still kind of connect, right? So those are some, and again, this is in me showing empathy towards those people caring for clients with dementia. You're not perfect. There will be times that you will fail or you will make mistakes, and that's okay. For as long as you understand mistakes happen and you need to make those changes, improvements, right? So what makes difference? Skills, right? It's very important that when you are caring for a client with dementia, it doesn't mean that they lost all the skills. Understanding and being curious, what's still left, is showing empathy and working with it. They love cooking, they love gardening, do it with them. Don't just sit with, all day long. If the client wants to sit down all day long, try to initiate activities, right? Musics, activities with them. Even sometimes just my Instagram. I go visit one of our clients in Palo Alto Commons. I use my Instagram with travel. He used to travel. He used to be the mayor of a big city. He used to travel. So we talk about it. I ask him to read. He's a great reader, a graduate from Stanford. I ask him, can you read for me? I can read. But that's a way of me connecting with him. Can you read for me? Those type of things sometimes is super helpful. Music. Music is really something special. Music and prayer sometimes. For those people who used to pray a lot and go to church, those are things that still connect them, because with dementia, what they lost is sometimes the short-term memory, especially if it's a slow process. The short-term memory, they cannot remember what they ate this morning, but they remember what happened 20, 30 years ago. Right? Yeah. So those are conversations that you want to talk about, things that make them still feel relevant and valued, right? I have a client in Morningstar. She used to be one of the most, she advocated, she's Vietnamese, used to be first generation here, very well off in Vietnam, used to advocate for people against, racism, sexism, all those sisms, right? So she feels proud, and we talk about it every time. I know the story every time we talk about it, every time I visit her every month. We talk about those sisms, right? The sisms. And she used to read poems, so every time I go there, I ask her to read my poem, and every time she tells me the same thing. So every time, right? And she finds joy. Like everything is brand new to me, right? And the family loves it. So communication, respectful communication, right? Don't call them rude, don't call them mean. It's the behavior. They're unable to control. The part of their brain is unable to control it, right? And communication strategies, use simple, clear language, because again, the part of the brain is unable to comprehend complex languages, right? The left lobe, comprehension and speaking. So it's very important, simple sentences. Simple. Don't use highfalutin words or something like that. Simple. Eat. There's one in Foster City. Eat. Let's eat. Let's walk. Let's walk. Those type of things. But if they're still able to, you don't have to one word only, but this is the particular client with one word. You don't want also one word, talk, but this person can talk, right? So you just have to kind of navigate it. Yeah. Just like, well, Vanessa told me to just say one word, talk, call, walk. Okay, maintain calm no matter, this is again because we're healthy, normal, still normal, intact. It's very important that we're still able to control our emotions, because we still don't have dementia. If we're unable to control our emotions, we're not adding to the value of that shift. Even though, and I know it's a hard ask, because it gets really exhausting and tiring. So it's very important that we just try to control and leave for a little bit, get space, breathe, right? And understand, go back to the anatomy, the physiology of the brain, and know that this is not personal. Come back. And you'll see some value in what you do. Positive tone, nonverbal cues, like what I said, right? When one is sitting down, a client is sitting down, relaxing, you cannot just abruptly go to the client, because their spatial awareness is missing, right? They get scared. So it's super important to go to the eye level, eye to eye. There's one thing that I learned from Teepa Snow, and I'll show it with Alex if that's okay. I'm gonna touch your hand. It's really like, you the not abrupt is just like, knock, 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 knock. Hi, Alex.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
It's Vanessa.
Hi.
Hi. And then extend if the client wants to extend. So there's a value, and
I go like,
okay. Okay, so if he doesn't want, you're supposed to extend your hand.
no. You need to convince me.
You're supposed to. I'm just kidding. So if the client wants, so it means that he's not safe yet, right? So you move forward. Hi, Alex. So you don't want to be in this position because there's that stance of power. I want to overwhelm you or want to take over, right? So you go, Alex. If the client is known to be punching, so don't go in the front. Okay? So you go on the side. So you have time to kind of do this. Okay, so hi, Alex.
Hi. Now, you can
Oh,
have my hand.
so now there's a
Fun.
hand over hand. Hi, Alex. So how are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah. Want to have coffee or tea?
Tea.
Tea? Let's see. So those simple, right? You give some choices, but not 5 choices, right? Because you want tea, boba, milk tea, cafettino, everything. So try not to do that, guys, okay? Yes, V.
What we can do is, when I just knock knock, what?
If you try to be slow, like knock knock and still what, right?
Knock knock, she's still on the bed, and then I open. Hey, good morning. What? I don't want to go anywhere.
Okay. So again, you meet them where they're at,
Oh, yeah,
right?
okay, I just
Space.
wait,
Okay.
And then open the curtain. Don't open the curtain. Okay.
Okay, there you go.
And then, okay, I just wait for you. She only like to watch TV.
Correct.
And the husband doesn't like she watch TV. That's the two differences.
So it's like that, like respectful tone and meeting where they're at, right? So
Finally, yeah. Okay.
finally, okay.
Done. Get your breakfast.
Yes. And again, this is something you guys have to navigate. These are just basic information. There's no right and wrong answer. You try different tricks, right? You cannot be in a mindset of this is how I'm gonna do it. You navigate it, and then next time that we come back here, you kind of share with us what worked and what didn't work. So we're learning, right? There's more scenarios here, but I just want to be respectful of people's time. Validate their emotions. If they're scared, oh, I hear you. I know you're scared. Tell me more. Or if not, you're scared. Hey, look at is this your son? Like, the picture frame. Is this your son? They're good. Redirection. It's a skill that we all need to practice. Redirect. Automatic. They can be fixated on something, but great caregivers can redirect. Slowly or fast, depending on how skilled you are, okay? And then communication strategies, redirect, right? Redirect. And offer choices. Not too many choices. The maximum is 2. You want your red or blue, right? Or blue, right, red, rainbow, or everything like that. Don't do that, okay? You need to get 2 max. 2 choices. And be patient. Again, there will be times we will not be patient, and I do the realistic things of what's happening out there. But come back to this kind of training and remember, like, empathy, right? There's physiology backing it up. Okay? And then scenarios, again, just because of the time, we can just do one scenario, and I can accusation of stealing. Someone said, you're stealing something. I left my wedding ring here. What are you gonna do? I left my wedding ring here, and you're the only one. You're the only one. I'm gonna call my daughter, and I'm gonna call the police. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, call your daughter.
Call your daughter. Call your daughter.
Usually, okay.
Call your daughter. Hige. Okay.
Quiet, everybody. Listen.
Okay.
Okay, sometimes when that happens, it's not just happened once. And the daughter or whoever is taking care of that
They kinda
person
know.
already know where the ring is, where the money is, and everything. Now, sometimes people behave like that. not because they are worried about the ring or the money. They have another need, but they cannot express.
Love. That's the one.
Or,
That's the one.
They need love, or they need to go to the bathroom.
Attention, connection.
They need to go to the bathroom, but they don't know. They don't
Yeah.
know how to tell
True.
you. So you need to ask them. You need to trigger. You need to find out what is triggering that.
That behavior or that
behavior.
accusation.
And then,
They communicate.
you know, when if they are hungry,
You stole
there
my
was
ring.
something, yeah, like, you know, they're talking about the ring, but maybe they are hungry.
Correct.
Okay.
And what if there's also the ring is really missing, right? You know, that happens too, the reality and imagine. So it's super important that we, in some ways for me as a home care agency, like once we start the case, we try to ask the client's family if there's any valuables, you know, that's out there. If there's a safety deposit box that you can put, because we don't want to place our caregivers being accused of some things, right? If you can please do that. Right? So in this one, just to let you know, when people are trying to accuse, and some people are not even diagnosed, you know, there's people who's not diagnosed with dementia and accusing you of certain things, and this is like a precursor symptom sometimes. So it's really about just their need to be in control. They're losing that control. They're scared that they're losing the memory, but they're unable to share it because they're scared of losing the control. So there's a lot of things. And maybe there's already a brain not functioning. They thought they place it there, and you're the only one that they see every time. So you're the automatic person that they're going to accuse. So that, why it's happening. So you know, it's all about understanding and not saying she's mean and why she like that to me. Right? So understanding that there's brain anatomy backing this up, and I'm hoping that this training will allow you tonight, today, later on this afternoon or evening to have a sense of empathy. There's something in your chosen caregiving because it's innate in you. So I'm really hoping that you go back to the anatomy when things are you're struggling, it's challenging, that it's not personal, but you know, you guys are special people to be choosing this job. So our role, the ACCM's role, Danielle, all of us are here to really be supporting you emotionally in those moments when when you need us. And in moments you need us and we're not there, try to give us some kind of leniency. Give us at least 24 hours. Okay? Okay. So that's it for today. Just again, I wish I can have all these scenarios, but if you have any questions, any feedback, I would love to hear it. On how I can make our future training and collaboration better. Okay?